So, Michael Jordan's back from Barcelona, back from winning gold with the Dream Team, and draping himself in the American flag because fuck Adidas, right?
Yeah. Quick question, just to make sure that I got this right. He's the first player to win MVP, Finals MVP, and a gold medal, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Because I know when LeBron did that in 2012, that was the stat. It was like him and
Jordan.
Just more things to fire up that debate.
Yeah.
But after the gold medal, right? There's this third championship on the horizon. So Magic won 2 straight, right? Had to look that up. Magic won 2 straight in the late 80s. The one in 87 and then 88, right? Have that right? Yep. And then Isaiah won back-to-back with the Pistons after that. Like right after that.
Yeah.
So 2 was kind of the standard for greatness, which Jordan had, achieved.
Yeah.
So I think he's probably in a lot of people's like top 10 or top 5 all time. He's not the GOAT yet.
Yeah.
But getting 3 in a row for many people, that was the over the top point because it hadn't been done in such a long time. It hadn't been done since
they would have been at that point. They would have been the third dynasty in NBA history to done that.
Mikan's Lakers. We're gonna go all the way back there, and Russell's Celtics, and that's it. So it hadn't happened for 30-ish years at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit less than 30 years. The exact number will be on your screen. But that was then the standard for a lot of people, and a lot of pundits were like, if he can get the third one, that's like I said, that'll get him right over the mountaintop to being considered the greatest player ever.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of, obviously the Jordan Magic debate was a thing.
For sure.
So I'm sure a lot of Jordan heads will probably like, if Jordan does this, he's better than Magic or whatever,
He's the GOAT, automatic GOAT.
Yeah.
Kind of like people were with Tom Brady when he was winning his 5th championship. In a very similar way. Because everyone, and Montana was the mark with 4.
How many does he have now?
Who, Brady?
Yeah.
7.
And they were asking that question at 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that was when I think that's when he solidified it. Was at 5.
That's when he.
Not to get into football topic, but
it's similar. It's a similar thing in comparison to Jordan at this point. So go for it.
Yeah, Montana at the time was 4. He went to 4 Super Bowls and won all 4. So it was very Jordan-esque kind of. So he had that like undefeated record kind of thing. So, but Brady, by the time he won his when he won his 4th Super Bowl, I want to say he had lost already 2, right? Yeah. 2.
2.
And he won his 5th, which was the Atlanta Super Bowl, I believe. And that's what he had the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history.
Yeah. So just double over the top.
Yep, and that just made it kind of go crazy. And then at that point, he was 5-2, and then it's like, he's been to 7 Super Bowls, he won 5, like kind of makes it harder to debate Montana. And now he just kind of everything he's doing is like icing, sprinkles, everything to your cake, ice cream cake. Now it's not even a cake anymore.
But Jordan's right at that same point where Brady was heading into that 5th ring. Was like he's right on GOAT Mountain with the other guys.
Like, see, to me, I would not think that at all. Like, I would think that
this is it. Go ahead, continue. Go ahead.
Me and Russ think similarly sometimes. So
For sure.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it like he's probably like you said, like a top 10 player for sure. Because you still got Kareem, who really people considered the GOAT. Like, people didn't consider Magic the GOAT, not even at this point.
Right.
Because at the time, everybody thought Kareem was the best player in the world, and he was the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, especially by the late 80s, for sure.
Yeah.
And Magic, like you said, Magic had that run at the end of his career where he won those 3 MVPs. And it kind of happened really fast in terms of a peak. But
now that I'm thinking about it, so, and this is my, I don't like to do it sometimes because I don't want to bring my biases in it, but I do kind of disrespect Kareem a little bit in the sense that I think a lot of people, if they were arguing Jordan over Kareem at this point, their argument is, well, he only won 1 championship without Magic. Like, you needed Magic Johnson to get to that point. And Magic needed. It goes to the Magic and Kareem thing, you know.
Right.
And in reality, you could say you won 1 championship at being the top dog and dominating or whatever. Like,
as Magic, you're saying if you're Magic Johnson?
No, if you're Kareem.
Oh, for Kareem, you
only did it 1 time. Because this is my argument for why I have Kobe over Kareem in my top 5. People probably think that I have issues for thinking that, but I think Kobe winning 2 championships, being the leader of his team goes a little bit over Kareem winning his 1. So in my mind,
Kobe's like 8 years old at this point. I was trying to figure out how that was related. I was like, how did we somehow find our way to Kobe?
No. Well, it was just more so.
It's because Kobe's his MJ, so he was trying to speak comparatively.
I'm just trolling you. I was following him for the most part.
No. I think that too when I'm talking. I'm like, how did you get to Kobe somehow? And I'm sure everybody's thinking, how did you get to Kobe?
The reason why I'm surprised at that is, in a very similar way, the way we look at it now, everyone gives Jordan that GOAT classification because he has 6, not because he has 3. So that was the most interesting part, because even at 3 championships, even though it was 3 straight, Magic still went to the finals almost every year in the 80s and came away with 5 championships.
Yeah, well, that's just recency bias. What people thinking that at that point, that's recency. I think if Jordan would have ended his career on the first 3-peat, he wouldn't have been considered the GOAT.
Well, this is why maybe not in 2021 he would still not be considered the GOAT. And we're going to get into, actually, let's keep going with 93 because this goes into a point I want to do when we get to his retirement after this season.
Yeah.
But the Bulls this year, right? Last year they were 67-15. This year, 57-25. So I wanted to compare this team to the last Warriors team when they were on their run with Kevin Durant
in 2019.
In 2019, but I'm really thinking about the one from the year before in 2018, because both seasons, the year they won and the year they lost, they were perceived as bored, quote unquote, or like the grueling nature of the 82 game season. They just couldn't get motivated for every single game anymore. And
I feel like 2018 that was a big media narrative thing, because I don't think that was the case in 2018. 2019, you can clearly see it like visually.
But even if it's a media narrative or not, the same could be said for this team. It's a media narrative or not. You know what I mean? Like you could even look at it. You could look at it both ways. Because even when I say it out loud, the thought of Michael Jordan not having motivation is interesting. You know what I mean? And we use this season often when we do our time machines, because when you watch Jordan play in this season, everything he does is like flawless in terms of his body motion and just control of himself on the court. He's got this. He is so much at the peak. It's ridiculous. All the 10,000 hours are there, and probably 20,000 if you're Jordan.
Well, I think, and I do think that this is the pinnacle of an NBA player.
Yeah.
At this point, there's nobody in their career, if you had to put 1 year, that was better than this guy.
But there are stories of, because the year before, and they had to work through this through the '92 season also, but the year before, the Jordan Rules book came out by Sam Smith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which shows Michael Jordan during these championship, especially during the first championship run. That's really what the book was about, was the first championship run. Michael just, being an asshole for the most part. There's really no way to sugarcoat it. He would ride people that he thought were soft. If he thought you were a pussy, he was going to be on your ass the entire season. And Jordan in The Last Dance blames Horace Grant, or puts the microscope on Horace Grant for being the person to give Sam Smith the information from the inside.
Yeah.
Horace Grant denies it. He doesn't deny that he has a good relationship with the author, but he did deny that he was the main person for the book. I think I believe him, because when you hear stuff in The Last Dance that he said to, or Michael Jordan said to a guy like, I don't know, Jerry Krause, the general manager, who seems to have really no problem at all being in interviews and talking to people and bad-mouthing people to make himself look good, probably helped in that Sam Smith book. There were probably
Purdue that he just like bullied for his whole career.
Yeah. Even a guy like Phil Jackson, who, when he wrote his tell-all book years later, had all kinds of crazy shit in his book. If you don't think Phil Jackson's not above that kind of shit. So it could have been anybody, but Jordan holds it against Horace. And all the drama and the hype of this third championship is just starting to wear on them, and they're not playing every game like it's the playoffs.
Yeah.
As they were previously, especially that's, last season when it was 67 wins.
Yeah.
And that's going to show in the season standings, right? Because they're still first in the East, right? Oh no, they're not. The Knicks are first in the East.
I think they're like third.
Second.
Oh, they're third in the NBA.
Yeah, third in the NBA, second in the Eastern Conference. Suns and the Knicks are the two teams over 60 wins, and that's where, when we look at MVP, that's where it shows.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Barkley finally breaking through. Charles says that, especially at this point in his career, he was just as good as Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, in his opinion.
You know what's interesting about that, Dan? Chuck Daly said to me one time, he said, Charles, I want to talk to you after practice. I'm like, what I do now? And he says, I just want to tell you something. He says, I've been coaching the NBA a long time, and you're the second best basketball player I've seen. And I says, wait, there's somebody better than me? He says, Michael Jordan. I said, Michael Jordan just got help. But I tell people that's the greatest compliment I've ever gotten in my life. He says,
but he never had enough help or enough, talent from a teammate perspective to have that shine through. And if you think Charles Barkley is right, then this season is probably the best example of that, right? 25 and a half, 12 and 5.
For his entire career, sure. But I mean, this season he had a more than, a team that should have. I mean, he got to the finals and he went to the team, so I mean, he went far. So
no, that's how Barkley felt when he was on Philly. And that's why he wanted to be traded from Philly. Once he got traded from Philly to Phoenix, that's kind of why he feels that way, I guess. That's what, and especially leaving the Dream Team situation, where many called him the best player on the team, as we discussed when we talked about the Dream Team. Got to be coming through with a lot of confidence. And now you're the MVP of the league.
And I'm sure, when you work out with Jordan and Magic and stuff, like, you learn things, and I probably saw that his, things in his work. It happened because obviously I wasn't born for this Dream Team, so I don't know the stories. But I know in 2008 you had like Dwayne Wade come out with stories with how he learned from Kobe and stuff.
Yeah, well,
and
that was MJ's primary motivation, though. We talked about it when we did the Dream Team. Once he saw who was going to be on the team, the number one thing he was like, finally, I can see how my competition practices and prepares every day. That was like one of his primary motivations for doing the Dream Team. So that's a good point. But Michael's going to be in third place here in MVP voting. Another scoring title. What is this in a row for him? Like,
I think like 7, might be 7.
Let's see. So
yeah, it is 7 because
yep, on the money. 7th straight scoring title. So this is probably what made people feel like he was the GOAT after this point. It was like once he got, and this is what a lot of people say about him to this day. Once he got over the mountaintop and became that guy, he never really fell off. And especially when you do something like this and then you retire, I could understand why people would look at him like that. Like, just on paper, and especially this scoring average is definitely more than Wilt's. If we're just doing these beginning years, 32.3 is higher than Wilt's by a lot, and he shot 52% for his career at this point.
Yeah.
So
I just feel like if he retires at this point,
I don't know if in 2021 he would still be the GOAT. If he,
I don't know how. I feel like in 2021, what makes you not call him like guard Wilt Chamberlain?
That's exactly where my head went. Was that's where it would be, but the 3 straight championships puts him above Wilt. And
of course, that I mean,
Wilt was never perceived as that level of winner.
Yeah.
But I agree. I just thought that was I find that interesting, and when he retires after this year, we'll really talk about that level of adulation. But I feel like the MVP award's not. That makes sense that Jordan didn't get it.
The only thing I argue is Jordan being third.
So Akeem, right? I imagine Akeem was on a team with less. 55 wins. And Elijah, did he win Defensive Player of the Year this year?
He might have.
Let me get that.
Jordan was second.
Yeah, Defensive Player of the Year for Elijah Wan, and Jordan was second. So, but Akeem ran away with the voting, though.
Huh?
Akeem ran away with the voting.
Oh yeah, for sure. My only thing is Jordan's win shares is like higher than everybody there.
And it's close though. It's not like standout over the top. We've seen ones where Jordan's got like 21 win shares and the next closest person's got like 14.
And then he's averaging 33, 7, 6.
Right.
And I just think with the extra wins, like I feel like it shouldn't be a question. I feel like people were comparing him to himself more than comparing him to everybody else.
Here's where my hot takey brain comes in, and what I think might be a hot take. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. In terms of where they are in terms and talent level and control of the game, in my opinion, Akeem Olajuwon and Michael Jordan are on a very similar level. They just play different positions. Michael Jordan is the best two-way guard in the league by a mile, and Akeem Olajuwon is the best two-way center in the league by a mile, in my opinion. Somebody will probably give you Patrick Ewing, especially because they won 60 games this year. But Akeem Olajuwon, 26, and most of those 26 a game are on tough turnaround fadeaways, basically him in isolation doing weird Akeem shit.
Yeah.
And 13 rebounds, 4.2 blocks, right? The next year, he's going to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. He'll be the second guy to do that. So he's right at the peak of his powers with Jordan. And the only thing that I would say where Jordan could probably get the leg up is you can argue about difficulty of conference. But at this point, the Celtics don't have Larry Bird. The the Cavs are the third best team, and I don't think there's a lot of like. They're probably like the Raptors in comparison of today, where they were good. They were always at the top of the East, but no one really took them that serious, especially while Michael Jordan was playing. It was really about this Knicks team who had taken the Bulls far in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
And of course, MJ. Where in the West, you got Barkley, you got Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, you got Drexler, you have David Robinson, Malone and Stockton, right? So maybe the West is finally taking it as a deeper conference.
Yep. You could say that the West might be the better conference.
Akeem still jizzing on all of them. I like that.
That was just unnecessary.
I love Akeem. I look forward to doing his legacy breakdown because it's a weird one.
So I just want to note one more time. This is Jordan. I think this is his seventh out of like the seventh time in his career that he was top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year. That plays
where he's top 3.
Oh, sorry. My bad. I think it was his 4th time as top 3.
I was gonna say I felt like he did it a couple more times when he comes back.
I think it's like his 7th time as top 5.
Okay.
Yeah. But
wow.
That's huge, especially as a guard. That's not normal.
He averaged basically.
I don't think there's any other guard that's done that. Been at that level where you're MVP level, and guard or forward that's done.
At this point, when he retires, I don't know how many other guards have averaged a block a game. He'd probably be it.
I think still to this day it is not. I think there's only like 2. Between
Wade did it for a season.
Yeah.
I think Kobe did it for a season.
Yeah.
And that's the only ones I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But he did it for his whole career. Like at that point, I look at that as like, especially when we know what's coming on the horizon. I'm just trying to think of it in a finality type.
Yeah.
I
agree for sure.
And it's like he is definitely the best two-way player. If you said he was the best two-way player ever at this point, I feel like you're not going to get a whole lot of arguments out of people. I really don't.
But best two-way player? Oh yeah, for sure.
At this point.
Yeah, because of the hype, but you can argue Hakeem for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's where my head was at. And when we do his breakdown, I will be fighting for that. But we're talking MJ.
I just think what Jordan does is harder. That's my whole thing. Like
you could argue that, but I need more eyeball time and watch time on Akeem's game during this time to really give you a real answer. In my head, I want to argue with you about it, but I can't because I don't have all the footage in my head. I just crammed my brain with all this Jordan that I can't give you an honest answer. But he might have, especially because he was a physically smaller player in comparison to Akeem and what he had to do, especially. But you could argue Akeem's position was a little deeper. Stuff like that.
That's the thing with Jordan. His position wasn't as deep.
But then you could argue with him that's because he fucking cleaned it out. Because it was just deep last year with fucking Clyde Drexler, and now all of a sudden, not anymore.
It was really only him and Clyde as shooting guards in the league at this point. Him and Clyde were like the top,
and that's it. And in center, you're getting you got Shaq coming into the league now. This is his first year, and then you got Ewing. You have Robinson.
You got
obviously Akeem, but Robert Parrish is still playing, but he's at the end of his career. Alonzo Mourning is in the NBA at this point.
Yeah, I mean not center, but you wouldn't consider it. I know.
Can't say Malone. I was gonna say
Malone, power forward,
but no, it's deep at that. It's really deep at that center.
Way more competitive than the shooting guard position for sure.
Yeah, and it shows in the voting. Honestly, the process we just went through, It's got to be what a lot of voters went through at this point, for sure. And Jordan still walked away with first place votes, but for all the reasons we just named, that's why Akeem was able to squeak out just a little bit more than him.
Yeah, but I think Barkley 100% deserved it.
Yeah, 62 wins, and that stat line, there's not a lot of guys that really have done that.
And the thing with Barkley is he did it in one of the most competitive years of the 90s.
Yeah.
You'd argue between one of those
many good teams.
Yeah, one of those 91, 92, 93 years was the most competitive the NBA had been in, especially in the 90s.
Yeah, up to this point, I would say. Because we're going to get to a point. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing
of the 90s.
Here's the thing with this. Because now that I'm looking at the standings, expansion has started. Right? Yeah. So we're already starting to see the league become a little diluted, which we're really going to see going towards the second half of this 90s run for Jordan. So it is competitive at the top. I went through some of the stars on each team, but we are starting to see the league, like I said, get diluted.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the playoffs where there's talent galore, right? So Bulls get the Hawks in the first round, right?
Yeah.
As the 2 seed.
So going into this, everybody's given, everybody has the narrative that the Bulls are like weakened or whatever, and they're not the same Bulls of the last 2 years.
Right.
And they immediately start off just dominating.
I heard the quote. The quote was, and this is what made me think of the Warriors. The quote was, for a team that's just coming off 2 straight championships and has a scoring champion, and is considered one of the best teams of all time, there's never been so much gloom surrounding them. And that made me think of the Warriors with all their shit with Draymond and KD.
Yeah, same thing.
Just all the drama and the stress of like getting to the mountaintop again.
Yeah.
I thought that was so interesting that that wasn't new with the Warriors. That had happened. It just hadn't happened for a long time. What are you smiling about?
My conspiracy brain.
Oh, here we go.
I just think that the NBA just wanted to repeat the story and just whatever. We could go to the next thing.
They got 2 different authors, all right? David Stern and Adam Silver are 2 different authors of your conspiracy story.
It's fine.
I think it was passed down.
Yeah, I mean it's one toward the other. So
okay, but there was what did I have in my notes for this series that I wanted to talk about? So they win it in 3 games, right? Yeah. Okay, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about. Michael Jordan gets hurt in Game 3 in the closeout. He sprains his ankle, and obviously he plays 40 minutes still because he comes back on the sprained ankle and scores 14 points to close out the Hawks in the fourth quarter because they were starting to come back.
Yeah.
And and he comes back and puts 14. The highlights will be on your screen.
That's fun.
Yeah, basically it's just like, fuck that. We're sweeping them. We're not going another game. Because I'm sure he probably looked at it like, if I just hurt my ankle and we can close them out here, would like rest for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So that wasn't so. I just thought that was some classic Jordan stuff and goes back to what I was talking about all the way when we were doing Larry Bird's legacy breakdown. If that happened to a guy like, say, I don't know, Kyrie Irving,
yeah,
he doesn't come back to the game. He doesn't get to come back and finish the game, even if it's hurt. You know what I mean? Guys back then could just get away with more because ignorance was bliss.
I think the severity of it matters too. Like,
right,
how bad the ankle injury was. I mean, because you just 10 years ago, you had guys that would do that. Like,
yeah, but
really, just 5 years ago, you had. I mean, KD 2 years ago?
Right.
He ruptured his Achilles because of it.
Right. But he also took 2 weeks off before he tried to come back.
What about Chris Paul just
Yeah,
this
but I think
season
it was
with his
because of
shoulder?
hurt.
He played with his shoulder being
Yeah,
funny in that one game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he still had to. He tried to play through it, and then he took the next game off. Right.
But like, it's still the same idea, though.
Sort of. But my point is like, because of what we know about medicine and science, and because of what we can do with X-rays and stuff, like it's so much more of an exact science than it was even in the early 90s.
All right, how
where
about
it was just taking it up to Jordan's word? Yo, is your ankle good? Yeah, I'm finishing the fucking game. And that's it. A lot less of that goes on now. The only comparison I can make is Harden during this playoffs, but that was an anomaly. Like, we don't see that stuff happen anymore.
Well, Embiid played the entire playoffs with
another one. Embiid on his knee. That stuff just doesn't happen as much anymore. It just doesn't. For whatever, because people are more nervous about their investment in the player. You know what I mean?
AD played almost the entire playoffs last year with a bad ankle. I think it happens. I think it depending on the severity of the injury. I think that's when, like, obviously KD had to sit out a couple of weeks because it was the Achilles. Like, you don't fuck with that. Like,
right.
But I swear, I'm almost 100% sure if Jordan had an Achilles injury, they wouldn't have let him play.
I see. That's where I don't know. I just don't. I can't prove you right or wrong on that, because I think about Larry Bird with his concussion, and they let him play even though his back was destroyed. Yeah, but it was late in his career and everything, and they let him play right through that shit.
Context is
my thing is severity is different. Like severity is very different depending on the generation we're at. In 2021, maybe Jordan has to is out for the rest of the game with a sprained ankle and can't come back, no matter what, because it's Michael Jordan. We want to save you for the next round. That happens a lot in this era. It wasn't happening as much back then. People were a lot more dying on their sword.
I just think, I mean, if he had an Achilles injury, I think him looking at Dominique Wilkins just getting an Achilles injury and having to play, it took him out for a season or whatever. He's even playing him in this series or whatever. I feel like I really do think it's severity. I do agree though. It's definitely it's a little less likely they let you play, especially if if you up 2-0 and it's obviously a 3-game series, they probably would have rested him.
Yeah.
In 2021.
Right.
But for the rest of the game, but I could see him 100%. I would see them playing him the very next game.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. That wasn't where I was. What I was saying is exactly what you just said. Is that I don't know if in 2021 they don't look at it like, dude, we need you going forward. People are just more forward thinking now than they were then, and it's some of that little stuff is interesting because we don't even hear about Jordan spraining his ankle in this game and coming back and scoring 15 points or 14 points. I said.
Yeah, because it's so small on his.
Yeah, but we remember Luka coming back on his sprained ankle and hitting the step back 3 over.
Well, that's because it happened last year, and it's also like he doesn't have as many achievements. Like, I'm sure 10 years from now, if Luka wins 4 championships and goes, that's not going to be as talked about. Like, as
I don't know. I can't say for certain.
We talked about it off mic about LeBron's 25 points in fourth quarter and overtime against Detroit is not even talked about anymore.
Yeah,
and you feel like it's one of his top 5 achievements.
Yeah, it goes right back to stuff like that. I just don't. I don't know. This guy's career is fucking loaded, and he was. We're right in the era of him being like just extreme sociopath. I will do anything to win. Mentality. Yeah. Like that's what it was about for him. And as we move on to Bulls versus the Cavaliers, we're going to see a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
So obviously it's a sweep as you saw, but the Cavs, as we've seen in the previous seasons, have been getting their ass whooped by MJ. Just beat down, right?
Facts.
So they reach out to get Gerald Wilkins. right?
Yeah.
Gerald Wilkins will be known going into this series as the Jordan stopper.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, they felt that he did well against Jordan. How tall is he? What's his dimensions? So he's 6'6", 185. So he's Jordan's height, right? It's a little smaller than from a weight perspective.
About 20, 25 pounds smaller.
But same height, probably same length,
Yeah.
And they were like, he can do it. He can help. He can defend Jordan. Well,
yeah.
Michael in game 1, put up 43.
So, and this is right
on
after
purpose.
The sprained ankle.
Correct.
So that was 8 days. They gave him, I think, no, about a week's rest. So that did.
So glad you were paying attention to the days because I wasn't.
It was. I think it was May 4th was the last. Was the last game of Atlanta series.
Yeah.
So he had a week's rest. So
Yeah.
I mean, his ankle's not fully healed up, but enough to where he can do some damage.
And boy, did he do some damage, right? 42 minutes, 43 points on 30 shots.
Yeah.
Right? And after the game, he said, quote, the Jordan stopper had a rough night tonight.
Yeah. That's the type of shit that I love about that. And I think that's what why a lot of people like favor the 90s so much.
Right.
Is because of shit like that where you could just say, not, and obviously in this censored world, I understand why certain things can't be said, but like things like that where it's just competitive nature and you just shit talking the other team, you should be able to say that. It shouldn't always have to be, oh, we played a really great guy, really great team.
Yeah.
Like we did well. We're gonna try to get it the next time. Like it doesn't have to be that bullshit all the time. Like make it fucking interesting.
Do you want my opinion on that? My opinion on that particular thing is the reason why we don't see that as much is because there is, outside of LeBron James, there is nobody with the real cachet to be able to get away with trash talk like that. And when we do see it from LeBron James, because it's not in LeBron's character, he gets way more criticized for that than a Michael Jordan would, because that is in Michael Jordan's character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think there's just nobody of that status. Like Kevin Durant sometimes does that kind of stuff, but it's more about his own game than it is about somebody else's game. It's always like,
yeah, when he said with I'm Kevin Durant.
Yeah, that kind of shit.
Yeah. But I think it's people are just too pussy. They're too puss-anonymous. I just learned that word about the last week or two. And I just feel like they think, well, if I don't back it up, the media is going to be on my ass.
Correct.
Which
Jordan
had the luxury of not really having that much. Like if the media was on his ass, you got the 3 reporters.
I think I don't know if that's true for that particular human being.
I'm saying 3 reporters because when you compare media now, it's like
I still don't agree.
It's not even close.
Michael Jordan was swarmed. Michael Jordan, the reason why they had to put him in that place in baseball was because of the media. The media, he was one of the first guys that had that like paparazzi massive.
No, that's true. But that's the same now too. Like in terms of actual physical human beings around you, sure. But he doesn't have he could leave that and go home and not have to hear it. Now because of the media, this thing right here, our phone, you can't run away from the media. The media is going to be on your ass way more than they would be on your ass at this point in time, and that's what I'm talking about. Like it's almost like you say something and literally you have to have like a 24-hour news cycle of people, and they didn't have that in the 90s. They didn't have 24-hour news cycles on the NBA.
Well, I'll tell this story. So Michael Jordan, right? He had a child with his wife before he got married to his wife, right? During his playing days. I swear I bring this up for a real reason.
Little thought.
So this is why I'm glad
talking
you
about
said
Jordan, not the.
I'm glad. No, but I'm glad you said this. I'm glad you said this. So there were reporters there at the hospital with Jordan because Michael Jordan's at the hospital, and they want to know what's going on. And Michael said, "Listen, I'm getting married to this woman soon." I think he really did, but he goes, "I'm getting married to this woman soon. Please don't put this in the paper, because if you put this in the paper, it's a really bad look for me."
We protected him more than I'd like to admit. When his first child was born, he hadn't been married yet. He says to a couple of the beat writers, including me, "I really would appreciate it if you didn't put that in the newspaper." Because we know he's had the baby, who was Juanita, who's, became his wife, and they were going to get married. And so I say, "Sure, Mike, we won't do it." And we don't. I mean, we just simply protect him because he asked us, and because we were concerned as well about what the public reaction would be.
And they didn't. They didn't put it in the paper. There were like 5 reporters there, and none of them put it in the paper. That would never fucking happen today. Yeah. Ever. That would never. That guy was the most Teflon, like Mike stuff and all that, him being no one was trying to fuck up the money train that was Michael Jordan. Nobody. For whatever reason.
No, well, I mean, the reason is, like you just said, the money train that was Michael Jordan. He is the reason these people are making the money that they're making.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that.
But LeBron, same thing could be said for LeBron.
No, at this point, LeBron could leave the NBA, and at this point, the NBA is still feeding millions of people.
Yeah, but the same could be said. Jordan's going to leave in a year, and the league's going to be quote unquote fine. Like it's Jordanless.
A lot of people argue that those 2 years sucked,
but that's totally subjective and not objective. You could look at the ratings and say they were lower, but you can't say that the quality of play was worse. That's totally subjective, because I wouldn't say that. I don't think that's the case at all.
No, of course, but I mean that when we're talking about the money, that's what you got to go with their ratings is what's making the money, not quality of play.
Any NBA player or any player, any athlete that would get that kind of protection from the media now.
No, but I think it's because
that's the biggest reason why I think.
But there's establishment now.
Who he is.
The NBA is just now getting to that point where they're trying to get over is what I think you'd say. And that's one. Now they just hit international. The NBA is gonna skyrocket.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
what you're saying is the way you're looking at it.
The lift off when now we're in fucking space.
Yeah, what you're saying is Jordan is the golden goose and the only person capable of being able to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I disagree.
If that was Charles Barkley in that hospital, that shit would have been out.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's because MJ's MJ.
He's the golden goose.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest reason I think.
It's probably why Will has so much resentment towards him too.
Yeah. Many athletes, or many reporters, I should say, considered him the Teflon Don when it came to stuff like that. Like every bad story would bounce off of him. Nothing would ever really ultimately hurt his popularity when it came to all of this stuff. The Jordan rules thing, it was just like, and the way they described it in The Last Dance was just rocks being thrown at the guy on the top of the mountain. And to other guys, it would completely have knocked them off. Like the public perception would shift, and it just never happened with Jordan. Jordan was just so beloved.
Well, it had never happened up to this point.
But even when we get past this point, we're talking about gambling and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, dude. Space Jam was still really popular. And
well, sure, but I'm talking about
and the '98 finals were the most watched in history. So like I that's where I don't think that's true. Like I don't think.
But I'm talking about he had never been. At this point he had never been challenged by the media, really. Like to that extent where.
Well, they tried, quote unquote. If you ask him, they tried with the Jordan Rules book that came out.
Yes.
With,
yep.
And that had happened before this point. This is a year past that.
But I'm talking about once they get into the gambling thing, which is
the very next series.
Yeah. But I mean, we could get into that once we get into that series. But
yeah,
with this series, the last thing I'd like to know is game 4.
Yeah.
So after completely like doing whatever he wanted against this Gerald Wilkins guy,
total emasculation of the Jordan stopper.
Yeah, he ends off that series by giving them a nice little bye-bye and hitting the game-winning shot to just like add some extra like. So he pretty much he ended the Cavs at this point.
Yeah.
From this point on, he let the Cavs become nothing.
We should look into and do a tally at the end of this of all the dynasties or potential good teams that were ended because of MJ. Because LeBron has those too, where there's just a bunch of teams that
there's a bunch of
something that weren't.
Yeah, and he like MJ, and I think the biggest thing with MJ that makes him look like obviously the greatest player of all time, is how many players he actually like. It's different when you say like this person didn't win a championship in the MJ era and he never faced them. He faced superstars and he faced some of the best players of the 90s. And he literally beat all of them. And he was the reason that they did not win championships.
And this is considered the shot too, FYI.
Yeah.
Because it was Cleveland. And it was funny because when I was watching the 93 documentary on this season, Jordan was like, I got a lot of good memories here in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And it just was like flashback right to the first one.
Yeah. And he did that one like so effortless. This second one, he did it so effortlessly.
Yeah.
You could tell it was a completely different team that he had. Because in the first one, he had to work his ass off to get to that point. This one, he's just like, oh, we got to this point. It's
a different swag. It's just a different level of swagger.
Yeah.
You get like that when you hit the mountain, the top of the mountain.
Yeah. When you won 2 straight championships, you kind of nothing really phases you. And I mean, when you're up 3-0, you're not too nervous.
Gerald Wilkins was able to hold him a shade under 50%. That's Pistons level.
So like, because we're comparing him to himself, like that stat line right there, we praised Kawhi Leonard for last postseason.
Yeah.
What we would consider that this would look kind of like a bad series for Jordan, like overall.
Below average.
Yeah, below average. And it's like our favorite players, like that's like some of their best work.
And that's why a lot of people get upset when Jordan is compared to anybody. Like when we compared Jordan to Donovan Mitchell. Probably not.
Well, we were more so comparing the situation than the player.
No, I'm trolling.
Yeah, don't do that.
Like, don't throw shade, please.
They compared Jordan to Donovan Mitchell. I look back at the video and then they're just
coming up to me and telling me Donovan Mitchell's Michael Jordan. I don't need that.
No, yeah.
But
I don't need that either.
Easy sweep for the Bulls over the Cavs. So now at this point, I got to imagine that much like when the Warriors started running through people and they got to the playoffs, most of America is like, all right, the Bulls are back. The Bulls are back. They're
I think after that, well, in the documentary, it was pretty much after the Atlanta series. They knew.
Yeah, they didn't even talk about the, what do you call it? They barely touched on the which documentary? The Last Dance?
No, the
Bulls thing, the Bulls documentary.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, wait, what? But in the Bulls documentary, they did talk about the Cleveland series.
Yeah, That's how I knew the game winner.
the main storyline of this Knicks series though is what took place last season. So last season, Bulls Knicks in the playoffs. Bulls were able to best them in a 7-game series, and the Bulls were the higher seed, correct? Yeah, first seed, obviously. They had 67 wins. And I suppose Pat Riley and the Knicks left that situation thinking if we could get home court advantage going into the next season and we had game 7 on our home floor, we would have won that game 7.
Yeah. And especially in this season, this Cup 93 season, the reason they felt like that even more was because going into the playoffs and up to they going into the playoffs and getting into that series, they had a 24-game home win streak.
The Knicks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they make it 27 to start.
Yeah. Correct. Just as you said, Knicks are going to take the first 2 at home and put the Bulls down 0-2. Pretty sure this is the first time they've been down 0-2 since they've been on this run.
Yeah. They didn't have.
We haven't seen.
They always split at least.
Which game is the one where Starks dunks on Jordan and Pippen? Is that game 1 or game 2? Sure. It's in this series. I'm positive.
I did want to note that I was surprised that Starks played really good defense on Jordan.
That's why this team was so heralded, and people thought that they might actually have a chance against Chicago, especially this year where they won 60 games.
Yeah, because he
was a good defender.
We just cockeyed and just said that a bad series for Jordan was like 49%, but he shot 40% for the entire series.
Yeah,
which is
32.
He got to his 32, but he was averaging about 30 shots
right.
at least.
But no one really credits John Starks for that monster defensive performance in that light, because many say it's due to him and his gambling problems especially after game 2. So
he even played good defense last year as well. I mean, in the 92 season as well.
Yeah. No, I'm not. Yeah, I get what you're saying. And we mentioned this in the last series, and we really should have mentioned it here anyways. Jordan, 37%, 36 points on 32 shots, right?
Yeah.
Apparently, he was in Atlantic City the night before game 2, gambling with his dad, and having doing nothing illegal, just being in Atlantic City and chilling. And the way The Last Dance tells the story is everybody crapped on him because it wasn't what a role model would do, right? When in reality, I'm sure fans of the game were like, dude, you're supposed to, what are you doing? You're on the especially considering the popularity that he's at.
Yeah.
Sure, people are like, dude, you're supposed to be winning the 3rd championship. You have a chance to be the GOAT, and you're fucking gambling? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's
so
great to think that.
Yeah. That they thought that we cared about what it meant for kids.
I just know, but it's crazy that it's crazy in hindsight to think that anyone would think, Michael Jordan, why don't you care enough? That's the most surprising thing, because in hindsight, obviously, him gambling didn't change his winning or his winning ways, and because it really didn't. He won throughout this entire era where he was this mass had these gambling problems or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think he was a gambling addict?
Yes.
Was?
Yeah. Do you think he still is a gambling addict?
Oh yeah. No, I agree that. Yeah. I mean, I'm just more so thinking, do you think the accusations are true? And I'm like, yes, they 100% are.
I think
him explaining how he wasn't just showed you how he definitely was.
Yeah, but That's the most interesting part. That's what I was going to say. I feel like he had a gambling problem before he ever started gambling. Like whoever was around him in his life and was like, "Oh, you're the most competitive person I know. Try this. You could spend all your money, and if you win, you get money back." And
well, it was really because of his like brothers and stuff. Like, if you really want to get into the psychology of it all, like how competitive he was with his brothers, like kind of made him into the person that he was to
right.
this point.
Yeah. But even let's just say he's got all those personality traits, right?
Yeah.
Considering all those personality traits, probably should never gamble.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean? Anybody who's super competitive like that to that degree should never be given an unlimited bank account and just gamble as much money as you want.
Yeah.
One of the quotes from one of the people in The Last Dance was, to Jordan, $10,000 is like you gambling $10.
Yeah.
And so he would just blow countless funds, just monopoly money, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just interesting in hindsight to think that people were so upset at him for doing the gambling when we consider this guy now, especially as his career's all over, as the most maniacal, like over the top, try hard, like it's like him and Kobe on the mountaintop of that.
This was 100% like the closest thing any player or star had experienced to like what social media is now. Like in terms of
like back then?
Yeah.
That's why when you were talking about that's why before when you were talking about the reporters and how different it is, I was like, yeah, for everybody else, but not for this guy.
Yeah, but the whole thing is
him.
If he did that now, it would be one like it would be that but significantly worse. Like
I don't agree. I don't agree. It's interesting. But I don't agree. I think it would be like this. It would hit maximum amount, and then literally in 24 hours, it would go like this because that's what happens in today's society. Whereas
with like
then,
ESPN, if you telling me Skip Bayless and freaking Stephen A. Smith and all of them won't be talking about that for every single like day. That remember they got 24-hour news cycles, and literally Stephen A. is not gonna shut the hell up about it. Like he's literally on every single ESPN episode you can think of. So he's gonna be on there, and that's gonna be something that he'd be shitting on him for 100%.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. I just could see it being because of how fast everything moves in today's world in comparison to then. Like a story like this would last weeks or months, whereas in today's world, like we were talking about Brady's comeback, that big comeback was like a great news story for like a week, and then it was gone.
But I just think if you like first off, if that was really happening, it really was to happen.
Yeah.
It would get to a point where you're just finding out more information as each day passes, which is going to keep magnifying the story. I think like
that's fair. It's a good point.
It's just
no, you got it. But that happened after game 2, so they're down 0-2. They're going back to Chicago, right? Blow them out in game 3. Scotty carries them from a scoring perspective for this game. Jordan, 22 points, 3 of 18.
Yeah.
He sucked in this game. So I'm sure it's just all, even though he's got 22, 11, and 8.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's all coming down on him from that perspective. Scottie Pippen, though, goddamn, 29 points on 10 of 12 shooting.
Yeah.
Crap on you a lot, Scotty. So nice game. Moving on.
I wanted to say, this was one thing that I really wanted to know about this Bulls team because this is going to be my case for his Apex team. So I did want to show, if you go to the postseason, regular season versus postseason stats of the entire team.
Got it.
So last year and the year before, the team always regressed. Everybody besides Jordan regressed.
Right.
as the postseason came on, and this is the first season that everybody gets better.
So this is last year. To your point, this is last season stats.
Yep.
Scotty, as we talked about, I thought this was probably his best year with MJ.
Yep.
And playoffs. To your point, slight regression on points.
Yeah.
Outside of Jordan.
The only one that goes up is Jordan.
And so now when we look at 92, 93 in the regular season, we got Scotty, Horace almost getting a double-double. And then in the playoffs.
What happened?
Sorry. There we go. In the playoffs, Scotty, 20 points, 7 and 5.5, 2 steals. BJ, Horace Grant's rebounds go down a little bit. But from a scoring standpoint, people do pick up more of the load.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that was a huge issue in the last year's playoffs, where you felt like the offense was like nothing unless Jordan, had a magnificent game. Like that was like a big issue about the playoff series.
I don't think that's so much in the second season as much as I did in the first season.
Well, the second season there was a lot of inconsistencies in the offense, like throughout the series. Like that was like
versus the Knicks in particular. Sure.
Yeah. Like in that Knicks series, they went like 0 for 11 to start the first game.
No, yeah, I understand that. I get what you're saying. I just think the team in general, besides versus the Knicks, was more. They were more motivated to get that second championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this team has more stuff thrown at them.
That's the part. Yeah, that's the part that to me puts them over the top, because it's like you. That's where when you get hit with the big adversity, how do you respond?
Yeah, So
obviously Scotty. He was, to me, what Scotty did in that third game is telling Jordan, you got somebody with you. Like you going through it. It goes back to Scotty in 91 when Jordan helped him out. I think it was against the Knicks. It might have been that second round where he says that Jordan, he was there for him when someone tried to come at him or whatever.
Right.
Like I think that was his way of showing Jordan, I'm here for you.
This game 4 that you were about to bring up, this is one of my favorite. This is why I didn't want you to bring it up too early. Yeah. This is one of my favorite Jordan games. Ironically, I think my favorite Jordan game is probably the double nickel game, also against the Knicks. But this is one of my favorite Jordan games because he shoots 6 for 9 from 3, and this is what he would do in 2021 as a player. This is how he would play. At the peak of his powers, this peak Jordan, this is what he would do. He would take 8 or 9 threes a game. He would try to get to 4 threes, more than likely, to try and hit 4 a game. Yeah. And I think because of that, his scoring average would go up if he was playing in 2021. And this is the game I use for example, because he hits threes on the move, off screens, he's hitting all kinds of crazy shots in this game.
Yeah,
and it's crazy because this is obviously after the Shrug game where he hits those 6 threes, and it's the first time he really paid attention on threes at all. And I felt like that's what made this game stand out in this entire season for me. This is probably my favorite game of the whole season for him, even more than the ones we're going to see in the finals. But yeah, just because I genuinely believe that this is 2021 what Michael Jordan would do if we had a time machine.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm not mad at that at all. I did want to note something because I didn't mention it in the beginning of the series, but just to add to how people coaches and everything were just different at that point. Phil Jackson, after losing the first 2 games at the Knicks, they go and say, he goes and says, they played their game in New York, but they won't play that game in Chicago. Yeah. Pretty much saying, you bullied us, you did what you had to do, but I bet you won't bring that shit to Chicago.
Yeah.
And it's and we got to remember, these places, are like pretty like gangster. Like I got like New York and Chicago are like some like we gotta remember what we talking about.
I think the phrase you should look for, or the phrase I would think of in this scenario is hostile environment.
Sure. I just think we know what Chirac is.
Hostile. It is a
yeah.
hostile road environment.
Yeah. Okay, that's a better way to say it. Whatever. But but yeah, and remember there wasn't really security like that and stuff. Like so you really like going into like dangerous territory doing some of the stuff that you're doing.
Hey dude, Kevin Durant's bodyguard had to come out to stop PJ Tucker this season, so
yeah, he had to
this
relax.
is still better.
Yeah.
Fuck. No, that's true. You know what? The other thing I heard Phil Jackson say is I was watching the series recap. So Phil Jackson in the middle of Game 1, they did like a cutaway to him talking about the Knicks' previous series, and he goes, they really played clean basketball. Only 2 flagrant fouls in the whole series, or in I think he said the whole series, but he was like it's way better than they did during the regular season. It's really impressive. Hopefully they don't try to clobber our whole team. Like he was like Phil was so passive aggressive in the early 90s for no reason. That shit was funny.
Especially like you got to remember this is the third time they faced the Knicks in the last 3 in this 3P.
Yeah.
And the season before that you literally had one of those guys say they're physically and mentally fucking us up pretty much. Yeah. So it's like there's definitely that mentality in there, like going into the series, and they know who they're facing and what they got to do.
For the Knicks, the Bulls were the Pistons to the Bulls previously. Like it was just reversed. The Knicks were just younger and the Pistons were older, but it's the same exact. It's so funny. All these major superstars through history, every at some point in their careers, be it Jordan, Curry, LeBron, Shaq, Kobe, at some point during all these guys' careers, there's a season or a period of time where where the opposing team just goes, let's find out if these fuckers are pussy or not. That's how we're gonna beat them. We're gonna hit them.
That's how you gotta get. Yeah,
they're so good. They're so good that we cannot play basketball anymore. We have to resort to fucking fighting them.
Yeah.
All the greats have this in common. If you can't beat, if they start scoring on you, beat the shit out of them.
Yeah. That's hilarious. That's facts though. That's so.
Or they're gonna just be great all the time.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That shit.
I just want to because the Knicks.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, they were the Bulls when like they're very similar to what the Bulls were like coming up against the Pistons. You would have expected them, you know, like if they were going to be the Bulls, they would have beat them. They would have beat the Bulls right here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this would have been the time when they're like, all right, this is my shit. Yeah. I'm number 1 seed. Like that's how I'm sure it was like being drawn out like in this process. Like they were probably like the Knicks are pretty much the Bulls. They're the number 1 seed now. Now they're the big dogs. They ready. They got their home court advantage. Even after Jordan drops the 54, right?
Yeah.
They're going to say
tied at this point. It's tied at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going into this game in Game 5 saying they can't beat us at home. We're 27 game. We have a 27 game win streak. It's almost impossible to beat us here. We're at the Mecca. We got freaking dirty ass Spike Lee here talking all the shit in the world. Like we ready for y'all motherfuckers. And then I'm sure those Knicks fans, you see the Knicks fans that were going crazy this year, post Russ edit, put that motherfucker there. It's probably like that, but worse. Because Biggie was like a thing now. Like, out here. It ain't no soft. Not trying to say
Biggie was a thing, and the Nets did not exist in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So he was Knicks all the way.
Yeah, facts.
Hilarious. Oh, but this was their first loss at home. right, for the
Yeah.
Knicks.
No, first loss in like 3-4 months.
Yeah.
At home.
And Jordan still a triple-double. 29, 10, and 14 triple-double.
Yeah.
Scotty, 28 and 11 rebounds. Horace Grant, another double-double. So their big three put in the appropriate amount of work.
Yeah. But even with Jordan not shooting the greatest, like him getting you that, like he was clearly the facilitator. He was playing like a point guard role, you know?
Yeah. And it's weird because usually Scotty plays that role.
Yeah. It was like it was like Scotty was just more so on attack mode. Look, he took almost the same amount of shots as Jordan.
Yeah.
You see, like that type of shit makes me feel, and that these are like the type of games that make me feel like this team is the best out of the three, because Scotty like helping him through this adversity. Like I really do feel like Scotty this is when Scotty's playing like a bigger role as like or at least becomes the Robin to his Batman or whatever. Like at this point, you know what I mean? Like are you in trouble? I got your back. Like,
well, Scotty
last 2 games.
Scotty had that triple double in the Game 7 last year against the Knicks.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good debate between which Scotty season is better with MJ. But you can make it. I get what you said.
No, I feel what you're saying though. Like with last year being, I think if last year he would have had more like done just a little bit more in the postseason, it would not be a debate to me. But I could totally see that season obviously being his greatest season ever.
So Bulls are able to win 4 straight after losing the first 2, which doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah. The Clippers, right, Lynn? Right, Lynn? Gang, gang, gang. You know that, Lynn? You know that, Lynn? We out here, cuz.
They are able to beat the Knicks. The Knicks get sent home packing once again. And let me. I've heard this said a lot
on Patrick Ewing. Come on, I know you want to.
No, honestly, the one thing that I think about with the Knicks is when Jordan retires, they must have thought,
thank God,
finally, thank Christ, we can finally have a chance to really win now.
Yeah, and remember the very next year, because we're not gonna do this because obviously he wasn't in the season or whatever.
Yeah.
So remember they beat the Bulls in 7, so they that's like they're supposed to be there. That's really seriously, they were definitely trying to push that narrative where saying the Knicks are the new Bulls.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then because they beat them in 7, they go to the NBA Finals, and then he gets on
fat African dick.
Yeah.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah. Okay then.
Hey, these are facts. It's not my fault. Blame the Knicks. Should have just taken less dick.
I always remember when I want to say I was like 15 years old probably, and I would always have obviously the Kobe Michael debate, right? And at that point, I think Kobe's won his 5th championship, whatever. So I go back to this season and look at his finals numbers, and I remember when I was 15, I was in awe about it, and still now, I did more research on this season, and he is the only player in NBA history to average over 40 for NBA Finals.
Really?
Yeah.
Jerry West never did that? Jerry West didn't do that the year he got the Finals MVP?
I don't think so.
Close. I believe you. I just because I know Jerry West is the only person to have Finals MVP in a loss, and I can't remember whether he actually. Nope, 37.9.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did check him because I remember. But when you said it, because I checked it last week.
Yeah,
so that's why you asking me right now. If we would have had this last week, I would have been like, oh, definitely not, because I knew that I did. But
Jerry West was a stud and always had to be put in that position where he was doing mad shit for his team.
The only Finals MVP to ever not win.
Facts. But Michael Jordan, as you said, 41 points, 51% shooting.
Yes. 50, 40, 69. Very, very LeBron-esque
Yeah.
line.
And he took 25 threes, so I'll count the percentage. If you take 8, I'm not as excited about your 3-point percentage.
He's taking about 4 again. And the year before he averaged about 6.
Yeah. Well, that was because of that shrug game for starters.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that he shot when I was, because that's a 2020 kind of stat line right there. Like,
for sure.
You know what I mean? Like him taking that many shots, that's not unusual. Like you had, I think Giannis right now is taking like 4 threes a game. And
similar, yeah. But game 1, Bulls come right in, take game 1 pretty easily.
Yeah.
Jordan with his 31 on 28 shots. Pippen, same, much to what we were talking about in the previous series. Pippen, 27, 9, and 5 with 2 steals.
Yeah.
Playing real well.
Yeah, just to know, like a key superstar, Danny Ainge in his 6 NBA finals, Just have to note that. Just seeing his doofy ass all the time.
A Robert Horry level of playoff success in the role playing category.
But he played like good. Like he was a key role player in all of those runs.
Danny Ainge is a guy who's lost in the shuffle of NBA history. He also had a pretty cool college career too.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just nobody really talks about him as the years go by. Outside of, he's the guy that has no soul when he trades people on the Celtics.
Yeah.
But the Bulls come in, they take game 1, right? Game 2, Barkley says that game 2 is one of the best games he's ever played.
Yeah.
42 points for Barkley on 26 shots, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, steal and a block, right?
Yeah. Shot 61%.
Not to be outdone, MJ, 42 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals on 36 shots.
Yeah.
So Barkley literally said, that's the only time in my life I felt that another person outplayed me on a basketball court.
Yeah.
And especially when he was having an elite game.
Yeah.
So I just found that to be really interesting. And guys like Charles Barkley are the reason why a guy like Michael Jordan is the GOAT. Because when you have guys who are played on the floor with you that can explain things like that to that degree and give you that level of compliment, it's like when Larry Bird called him God.
Yeah. And that's why even Magic is held at such a higher standard too, where because you got Larry Bird saying that he was the best player in the world, shit like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what makes you. Yeah, I agree.
When you get it out of your competition like that, and because sometimes your competition isn't necessarily, and I'm not trying to say people are dumb or not, but they're not necessarily able to articulate that in the same way. It's hard to talk shit for a living. And what do you call it? And not everybody's like that, but I think Barkley in this finals was a big reason for many to feel that Jordan was the GOAT after this finals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fact.
Game 3 goes to triple overtime.
Yeah, and
wild.
So this might go to your point, to where maybe this is not Scotty's best. He cramps up in third overtime. And
classic Scotty.
Yeah, which I thought about, and I was like, that's Russ is gonna say just that, but he played 56 minutes. Your bodies can only take so much, so it's but he shot 34%.
Near triple double.
Yeah. It definitely is a iffy kind of thing, but I mean, I don't know, but it goes to when you have a history of it, it kind of makes it a little worse.
This is a very another Jordan 2021 style stat line. I could see him putting up 8 to 9 threes a game. I really could. Because I'm not saying he'd be a 40% shooter. I'm not totally sure of that. But I could see him throwing them up. I really could.
Yeah.
And if he worked on it, I think this leads me to believe this, and other things lead me to believe that Jordan would probably get to that 40 a game in this era, which is nuts to me, because nobody really comes close to that. But this, because of his volume shooting, like if you're telling me Jordan's going to still be able to get up 25 shots a game in today's era,
Yeah.
I don't know how he doesn't get to 40. I think it would be impossible.
If he so two things. If he had the same person, if you just take this same person,
yeah,
and bring him into 2020, sure, because you like obviously the nurture, whatever the hell,
right,
happens, and he might be a different person at this point. But so I could see what you're saying for sure, because he would be playing his 48 minutes or whatever, and that's 82 games,
yeah,
playing his 37 minutes a game or whatever,
right,
and putting a huge toll on his body. I could totally see that. The only thing is, I don't think he'd be as much of a winner doing it that way.
Interesting.
And the reason I say this is because you mentioned something about Jordan. Jordan scoring so much points in the NBA playoffs, like, and actually winning these games.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually more of a, it more so showed the difference in the league at that point to this point. Because now, the reason, especially in the last 10 years, that these players who score all these points usually lose is
right,
because that other team has really good players around them. You know what I mean? Like LeBron scoring his 51 in the NBA, finals or whatever.
Yeah.
And him losing that game is because the Warriors had freaking KD, Steph, Clay. Like, I just think it would be too much. And if MJ had to do that, he most likely was gonna lose, because
that brings us right into this next game 5 here, where Jordan gets the 55, and that's a really good point. And I think it's also the way his team is constructed.
Yeah,
like if you're bringing the 93 Bulls into 2021. We're getting into the hypotheticals now, and I don't want to do that. But what I'm saying, I totally understand what you're saying when you bring that up, though. That's a great point, because if Jordan was in today's era, he would be surrounded by shooters. They'd stick him around. They'd stick him around 4 shooters, at least 4. Like, probably have a couple off the bench too.
Yeah.
But like now in this fucking team, nobody can shoot on this team except for B.J. Armstrong and Paxson.
Yeah.
Like, and they're specialists. They're not necessarily like,
like they're not 3-and-D guys.
Like Jamal Murray's like 100 times better than these guys, for example.
Oh, for sure.
And that's the type of guy that Jordan would be surrounded with now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, do you know what team would be? You know what would be a fun Michael Jordan team in 2021? The Timberwolves. Put him on a team with a bunch of people that need the mental toughness, like Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, most likely, this era wouldn't be able to deal with that. Like,
probably not. It's a great point.
Like, you have a lot of players who love the Kobe's Mamba mentality shit.
Yeah.
But how many people
don't
really they like it because of the surface shit.
Yeah.
You work hard. You bust your ass to get to the point that you're gonna be the greatest you could possibly be.
Yeah.
But then when you have to be a leader in that, and you have to push people to do that, I just saw a thing where I think they said Kobe Bryant said about a teammate that he wouldn't pass them the ball because he's seen how they work. You came in right on time for practice, and you left 15 minutes after. You didn't work on your game, huh? Yeah, exactly. I didn't see you work on your game. Why the fuck am I going to pass you the ball? MJ's going to be just like that.
Yeah, MJ famously didn't let Horace Grant eat on the plane.
Yeah.
Because he said he played like shit. He doesn't deserve food.
Yeah. And they were about to fight and everything for that.
Yeah, and Russell thinks that the team that couldn't handle Jimmy Butler would do well with Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're not, like, I feel like, seriously, all jokes aside, I feel like maybe there might be 5 teams in the NBA that could deal with Michael Jordan's personality as a leader.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this 55-point game, and once again, Charles Barkley triple-double, 32, 12, and 10.
Yeah.
I think I would have felt the same way if I was Charles. Like, I played my ass off.
Yeah.
I got a 32-point triple-double, LeBron style, and this motherfucker gets the most points ever in a finals game.
Yeah.
Or no, second most. Most is Elgin Baylor with 61. But
and that's the thing, like, this season really is what makes me feel what made, I think maybe like 2 years ago or something, I was saying that I think Charles Barkley was the second best player of this decade.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of this season
yeah
made me feel that way. Like, his peak was second best to me. But I could totally see how you would probably say Hakeem, and I wouldn't disagree with
Yeah,
that.
In my opinion, it's Hakeem. But this is why he's got to be on the list of legacy breakdowns. Next, we're doing Shaq, but after Shaq, we should think about doing Hakeem because his legacy is so weird. Because there was this point where he was a little bitch about his team, and and there was all this stuff. And he's got like a very underrated legacy from a story perspective. But Game 5, Phoenix wins on Chicago's floor, right?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
They get on the plane, heading down for Game 6, and Jordan asks Phil if he can speak to the team.
Oh, well, my bad. Before you get to that, going into that Game 5,
right?
Everybody thought it was over in Chicago because everybody thought that the series was over. They weren't going back to Phoenix. And Charles Barkley famously said there was no way in hell I was letting them win on their home floor.
Right. And
I just wanted to point that out. That was another cool Charles Barkley moment.
But the whole team was galvanized. Look at this. Yeah. Richard Dumas, 25 points, 12 of 14 shooting.
Was he Spanish?
I don't know. It's what?
The way you said it was Dumas, and
I think it's Dumas.
Like, is his name Ricardo, really?
I don't know.
It shows that
they have the pronunciation here. I don't
American.
know. But what do you call it? 12 of 14 shooting in this game for 25 points. Kevin Johnson, 25 and 8, the mayor of Sacramento. And Dan Marley with 11, 12, and 7 on terrible shooting. But still, his team as a whole came through to help him.
Facts.
Right? And Jordan, another 41 points, 41, 7, and 7.
Yeah.
That dude was just on a mission to
Horace
Grant, 1 point. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. No food. No food for you, Horace. None. Ridiculous.
Going game by game, like, you think about it and you're just like, wow, he beasted here. He beasted here. And I mean, yeah, that's what averaging 40 in the finals does for you. You know, that's crazy.
But as I was saying, after this game, they get on the plane. Jordan wants to talk to the team. He gets on the plane. He says, listen, I have only packed for one night. I didn't pack 2 suits. I only packed 1. We're not playing 2 games. We're only playing the 1, and that's it. Right? Which brings us to Game 6 and the famous Paxson shot.
He would have been mad as hell if he would have to wear the same suit or had to buy a new one.
Oh, are you kidding? He would have just had somebody else fetch him a new one. But been very angry about it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But Jordan, 33 points. Pippen, 23 and 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals. But this is the famous John Paxson shot where Jordan has him open on the 3-point line, on the wing, and Paxson makes the shot to perfectly seal the fight.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan didn't pass it to him. It was he passed it to Horace. Horace passed it to him. And the perfect example, the triangle, and then he just had the.
That's what I was thinking in my head. In my head, I was thinking it is the triangle at its most simple.
It's what the triangle would look like in 2020, is what I think.
Probably. I mean, that's a. We will get
just
that.
A bigger triangle. It's fine.
But Barkley wouldn't go down quietly. 21 on 18 shots is pretty bad. But 21, 17 rebounds. I just can't believe the guy's 6'6" and he's averaging like 15 rebounds a game in this series.
Yeah.
That shit is wild.
I was just gonna say, imagine being John Paxson, right?
Yeah.
And you got 4 shots the entire game. Like, this is why I feel like people like you just look at it and you're like, you're supposed to hit that shot. It's a wide open shot. Bruh, I played 4. How many minutes he played? 45 minutes?
Yeah.
He played it was 45 minutes, and he's like, bruh, I only shot 4 shots.
This is just jogging practice for me.
Huh?
He said, this is just jogging practice for me. I'm going up and down the court.
Yeah, exactly. Like, imagine, and then to have to be ready for that shot. Like, little things like that. Like, you can understand Jordan freaking shooting 50% from the field. He's shooting 25 plus shots. He's practicing this. Like, of course you're gonna shoot okay after like the 15th shot. You know,
you're gonna get some kind of rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, bro, I took 4 shots the whole game, made 3 of them, and I made the biggest shot of the game.
Yeah, and but I think, and this goes back to the drive and kick stuff from the '91 finals in that closeout game. It's so funny, like, because how this is remembered is Jordan, even though he was averaging 40 points a game, still was unafraid to kick it out to Paxson, who was wide open. You know what I mean? Like, that's how the story goes, is like the best player in the world is unafraid to trust his teammates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just think the guy was open for 3.
You don't think it was drawn up?
No, it was definitely drawn up, but what I'm saying is, like, I don't think he thought that much about it. I think it was just, we're going to execute this, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I think it's more so from in the sense where, like, for you to have that mindset when you're in that attack mode, and you were unselfish enough to say the play is going to be drawn up for Paxson, and I'm not bitching about it. Remember, like, you could think that that's not that big of a deal, but remember, Scottie Pippen, the very next year, he was that guy, and he bitched about it.
Oh yeah,
they won, but that was that was an issue going into the next series.
Scottie would be considered so much. I think he'd be so much higher on the poll of all-time great players had that moment not existed in his life.
And then Jordan didn't have to, like, acknowledge it, you know, like,
and that's why Scottie,
the Last Dance, he didn't have to do that.
That's why they're not speaking to this day.
Yeah,
because Pippen and Horace Grant felt like the Scottie moment got way more attention than it needed to. However, this is where I disagree. It's not called The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. It's called The Last Dance, the story of the '90s Bulls, and that's part of the story. So sorry, Scottie, you were a pussy. Deal with it. Sorry you have that moment. But here's the shot. Bang. Right there. Easy. And the Bulls win their 3rd straight championship, thus making Michael Jordan the GOAT in the eyes of the public. Kind of fucking mind-blowing. But as we've gone through this finals, your last plays and your last series, you average 40 a game. You go out on top. You won a scoring title 7 straight years in a row. You average more points for your career than Wilt Chamberlain, while also being the best defensive player at your position basically the entire time.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me that people are looking at him as the GOAT, but what surprises me more is how it's in the eyes of the public, it's inarguable. Like, it comes off as like, he's the GOAT, no questions asked. I don't want to hear another fucking person. That's how you're taught. At least when we were kids, like in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That was what you were taught.
Yep.
Jordan's the GOAT, and if anyone else is the GOAT, you're fucking stupid and wrong. Fuck you.
Oh, trust me, I know. I know. I had freaking.
And this championship is the official moment where that began. Yeah. And Jordan apparently knew the whole time that this would be his last season with the Bulls at this point. Because in The Last Dance, there was a reporter who had spoken to Jordan the year before and said, basically Jordan was talking about how tired he was getting of the grind, whatever. Yep. And he was like, what are you going to do? And he was like, I'm going to shock the world. I'm going to quit and I'm going to go play baseball. He says, and the reporter was like, when are you going to do that? He goes, well, I'd be playing this summer, but Bird, Magic, and Isaiah never won 3 straight.
Yeah.
And what do you call it? And I want to play on the Dream Team, or I'm going to play on the Dream Team. So that's why he didn't play baseball that year before. But
yeah,
we're starting to see that it was in the middle of a playoff game for baseball for the White Sox when Jordan told everybody. Yeah. It was the biggest news story of our birth year.
Yeah. Well,
it's ridiculous.
Some people might argue that the whole shooting of his dad could have been because of his gambling situation. If you owed a bunch of people money, like, was it because of you that you know, that which I'm sure was probably really freaking harsh on him at the time, you know, going through that. And do you think that that's true?
So apparently he was gambling with sketchy people, right?
Yeah.
That he didn't know about prior to.
Yeah.
Or in the moment, he didn't know that they were sketchy until after the fact, is what I meant to say. So Jordan's dad is coming to a charity event, ironically on my actual day of birth, July 23rd, 93.
Yeah.
He is officially found, or is officially reported missing, right, after a day of playing golf.
Yeah.
And he went missing for weeks and weeks and weeks, and finally they found his body, and his car was like totally stripped up. The pictures will be on your screen. Obviously nothing graphic, but pictures will be on your screen of the car all torn up. And if you've watched fucking Goodfellas, you could look at the situation and go, this looks like somebody who's messed with a car before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it looks not necessarily professionally done, but by someone who it's not their first rodeo.
Okay.
Which is what led people to believe when putting his gambling stuff from this past season and before that, combining that with the odd tragedy of his dad, you know, being, having that happen to him.
Yeah.
The rumor was, you know, that it was his fault. There is no concrete evidence to prove that.
Yeah.
But it is weird. It is weird that would happen to his dad. I do think that. Like, I think that it's not very surprising at all that people connected the dots in that way.
Yeah.
Because the guy is the most famous human being on earth. His dad, at that point, was pretty recognizable because he was in most of the championship celebrations, you know? And he, even earlier that year, he went and spoke to the media after game 2 of the Knicks series, Jordan stopped talking to the media. And his dad went out to the press and was like, listen, this guy's giving it his all. So I bring that up to say James Jordan was recognizable.
Yeah, for sure.
So it could be that. I
and thinking like a mobster, right?
Yeah.
right? You look at it and you're like, well, we can't get him. He's
Because we will get arrested.
He's Teflon, right?
Yeah, the Teflon Don.
But we can get someone who's not. Like, that's simple. Like, which could be the case, or it could be the case, especially in the 90s where all this stuff was happening, where, you know, you look at him and you're like, wow, you're Michael Jordan's dad. Like, I'm gonna stick you up. Like, like, give me your shit.
Definitely have money.
Like,
you have stacks.
Yeah, like, give me your
stacks.
And that shit, I mean, that could very well be the case too. Like, it could be as simple as that, where no mobster, nothing. It was just gangsters. We out here, and yeah.
Lindsay, what do you think?
I had never even heard of this until just now.
What do you think?
I think that, I don't know. I don't really want to speculate on someone's death like this, but it could just be a random, like, crime. Right?
So that's what people said. That's basically how it's been reported. And the quote I took away with it from it was, police said James Jordan could have been anybody. That was the quote. Like, it was just a random killing in the South. Whatever. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know either. I don't think we'll ever fucking know.
Yeah. I mean, it's, at this point, it's almost 30 years old, so.
But that leads to my second conspiracy.
Oh my.
So, well, you had one conspiracy. This is my first conspiracy, technically. But second conspiracy of this portion. Do you think he really wanted to leave? Or do you think he was told to leave the NBA?
It's so mixy for me. Because, like, I do want to believe that by David Stern.
Yeah.
That, like, David Stern kind of told him, like, now it's looking kind of shaky. Like, probably don't want you here for a little bit. Just to this shit down. Because going back to what you said,
you're gambling millions of dollars. Your dad's dying. People are coming after you.
Yeah, like you said, he was Teflon, and nobody looked at him a certain way. But that's why I mentioned, like, that was the first, like, really bad look for him, and especially after his dad. Like, there's no way in hell the next season that wasn't going to be talked about again. Like,
and also, there's no way that wouldn't have affected his game that next year, knowing him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, even though he's a sociopath, and even though he's, soulless on the basketball court, and even though he took a lot of his frustrations out in life on the basketball court to a positive extent,
yeah,
he did.
He's a human.
He's a human being, and it's gonna fuck with him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you win a championship because of that. Also, you're not gonna have Horace Grant.
And also your body. I mean, at this point, you had 4 straight long, pretty deep runs in the playoffs. So,
true.
Actually, like 5, because they went to the last 2 Eastern Conference Finals before they won. Yeah, so that's 5 straight deep runs. So that takes a toll, especially playing.
It's a couple. I think it's a couple. It's like almost 200 games between that, something like that.
Yeah, and then
maybe
like just the playoffs alone, or
yeah, maybe less. I was thinking about it a little more. Maybe
I was gonna say in total games, that's over 500.
No, it's way more. No, I was thinking that, but in the playoffs, I was thinking just playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah,
I want to say
it's about 150 probably.
There you go. Yeah, something like that. But
no, that's 5. No, it's about maybe 200.
Yeah, but
sorry, maybe 100. What the hell am I saying? Yeah,
it's all good. But that's the conspiracy that I always wanted to believe growing up, was that David Stern was like, listen, dude, I could just suspend you for the bullshit that you've gotten yourself into off the floor in an NFL style suspension, the way guys in the NFL get suspended for shit off the field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He looks at Jordan, he goes, I could suspend you, but you are the golden GOAT. And I kind of just, why don't you just go away for a season? Try baseball. Tell him it's for your daddy, whatever. And then maybe in 2 years, you come back. Then the first year goes, ratings are shit, right? And then by the end of the second year, the Bulls are shit.
Yeah.
So Stern gets him back on the phone. He goes, "Listen, Michael, you want to come back now? You can come back now. We got to get your Bulls to the playoffs. We need the money from Chicago.
Yeah.
We need the checks. All right." Yeah. Fucking A. That's I. The more you talk through it, the less sense it makes. But I always thought that was the thing as a kid.
I don't know. The more you were talking through it, the more sense it made.
That makes one of us. For me, it was just like I always looked at it and I was like, there's no way he would do that. And the biggest thing that made me want to believe it was a conspiracy was, how is the most competitive human being on earth just gonna be like, oh yeah, I don't feel the competitive edge anymore?
Yeah.
His quote from this conference was, "When I lose the passion for the game of basketball, then it's time to walk away." That's the biggest quote from this, and I remember it mainly because it's at the beginning of Space Jam.